The coin hit the frozen ground before anyone could laugh again. Clara May Holloway couldn't see the man who'd just bought her for $1. But she heard his boots steady, unhurried, crossing the distance every other man had refused to walk. When his rough hand closed around her bound wrists, he didn't pull. He simply held. "You're done being sold," he said, and his voice was so quiet she almost missed it beneath the winter wind. If this story touches your heart, subscribe and follow Clara's journey to the very end. Drop a comment telling me which city you're watching from. I want to see how far this tale has traveled. Dodge City, Kansas, December 1874. The auctioneer's voice cracked through the freezing air like a whip. "Come on now, gentlemen. $1, that's all I'm asking. One single dollar for a healthy young woman." Clara May Holloway stood on the auction platform, her bare feet burning against the ice-crusted wood. Burlap covered her face, not to hide her features, but to mark her, to tell every man in that crowd exactly what she was. Damaged goods. She tilted her head, listening. Counting. 12 men, maybe 15. The shuffle of boots. The clink of whiskey bottles. Someone spat tobacco juice close enough that she heard it splatter. "She's blind, boys," the auctioneer continued. Gus Harlan was his name. She'd learned it 3 days ago when he'd bought her from the charity house in Wichita. "Can't see a damn thing. But that means she can't run neither, can't fight back, can't cause no trouble." Laughter, low and mean. "Hell! Gus, what am I supposed to do with a blind woman?" "Whatever you want, friend. That's the beauty of it." More laughter. Clara's hands were tied in front of her loosely, almost carelessly. The rope wasn't meant to restrain her. It was meant to humiliate her, to remind her that she was property now. Less than property. She'd stopped crying 3 years ago. Tears were wasted on men who enjoyed them. "I ain't paying $1 for something that can't even cook without burning down my cabin," someone called out. "She can cook just fine," Gus shot back. "Been working her at my place for 2 weeks. She does laundry, scrubs floors, doesn't complain. Quiet as a church mouse." Quiet 'cause she's probably simple in the head. She ain't simple, just blind. Same difference. Clara's jaw tightened beneath the burlap. She wanted to speak, to tell them that she could hear every word, that she understood exactly what they thought of her, that being blind didn't make her deaf or stupid. But she'd learned that lesson too. Speaking up only made things worse. 50 cents, someone offered. "That's my final. 50 cents for a whole woman." Gus sounded offended. "I paid more than that for the rope around her wrists." "Then untie her and sell the rope separate." Laughter again. Always laughter. Clara focused on her breathing. In through the nose, out through the mouth. The cold air burned her lungs, but the rhythm kept her steady. She'd survived worse than this. She'd survive this too. All right, Gus said, voice dropping with disappointment. 50 cents going once. 50 cents going. Wait now. A new voice. Younger, rougher. What's wrong with her? Really wrong, I mean. Why's she being sold? Silence fell. Clara's heart began to pound. Nothing's wrong with her, Gus said quickly. Just blind like I said. That ain't what I heard. Footsteps approached the platform. Heard she killed a man back in Ellsworth. Pushed him down the stairs. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. That's just rumors, Gus stammered. Ain't been proven. Ain't been disproven neither. She's got a murder mark on her name, Gus. That's why nobody wants her. That's why you're selling her for 50 cents. Clara's hands began to shake. She couldn't stop them. I didn't kill anyone, she said. The words escaped before she could swallow them. The crowd went quiet. Well, well. The young man's voice dripped with amusement. The church mouse speaks. I didn't kill him, Clara repeated, stronger this time. He fell. He was drunk, and he fell. That's what they all say, sweetheart. It's the truth. Truth don't matter much when you're blind and alone and standing on an auction block, does it? Clara had no answer for that. Gus cleared his throat. Look, does it matter? She's here. She's for sale. Someone take her off my hands. I withdraw my 50 cents, someone called out. Don't want no murderess in my house. Me neither. Same here. Clara felt the crowd pulling away. Not physically, they were still there, still watching, but something had shifted. The air grew colder. The laughter died. She was worse than damaged goods now. She was cursed. Fine, Gus growled. Fine. Free then. Anyone want a free blind girl? Take her. She's yours. Just get her out of my sight. Nobody moved. Clara stood perfectly still, listening to the silence. This was it then. The end of the line. No one would take her. Not even for free. She'd be thrown out into the snow, left to freeze or starve, or a single footstep. Heavy. Deliberate. Coming from the back of the crowd. Then another. And another. Clara turned her head toward the sound, tracking it. The footsteps were steady, unhurried. A man who didn't care that everyone was watching him. A man who moved like he had all the time in the world. The crowd parted. She heard the shuffle of bodies moving aside, making way. Well, I'll be damned, someone whispered. The footsteps stopped directly in front of her. Clara's breath caught. She could feel him there, his presence, his warmth, the sheer size of him blocking the wind. He smelled like pine smoke, and leather, and something else. Something clean. What's your name? His voice was low, quiet, not soft. There was nothing soft about it, but controlled. Like a man who'd learned that words were weapons, and preferred not to waste ammunition. Clara, she managed. Clara May Holloway. How long you been blind, Clara May? Since I was 7. Scarlet fever. How old are you now? 23. A pause. She heard him shift his weight, heard the creak of his coat. You killed that man in Ellsworth. The question was direct. No judgment in it, no accusation, just a simple request for information. No, sir, Clara said. He came into my room drunk, tried to hurt me. I pushed him away and he fell down the stairs. Broke his neck on the landing. But I didn't push him down. I just pushed him away from me. Another pause. Longer this time. Anybody see it happen? One of the other workers. A woman named Nettie. But she was too scared to speak up. Why? Because the man who died owned the boarding house. Owned half the town. Had friends everywhere. Clara's voice cracked. Nobody was going to believe a blind girl over a dead rich man. The silence stretched out. Clara could hear her own heartbeat thundering in her ears. Then she heard something else. The jingle of coins. Gus, the man said. You wanted $1. Here's your $1. Something small and metallic hit the frozen ground. The sound rang out sharp and clean, cutting through the cold air like a bell. Silas. Gus sounded confused. Silas Cade. What the hell are you doing? Buying her. You don't even, you live alone up in those hills. What are you gonna do with a blind woman? That ain't your concern. But, take the $1, Gus. We're done here. Clara heard Gus scramble down from whatever he'd been standing on. Heard him snatch the coin from the ground. Fine. She's yours. Good luck with her. Then hands were touching her wrists. Not rough. Not demanding. Just careful. Working at the rope with practiced fingers. Hold still, the man Silas said. Almost got it. The rope fell away. Clara rubbed her wrists, feeling the raw skin where the fibers had chafed. Her hands were trembling again, but not from cold this time. The burlap, she said. Can you? Yeah. He reached up and untied the cloth covering her face. When it fell away, the winter air hit her skin like a slap. She blinked, a useless reflex, and turned toward where she knew he was standing. "I can't see you," she said. "I know. I just wanted you to know that. Whatever you think you bought today, I can't. I'm not." "I didn't buy nothing, Clara May," she frowned. "But you paid." "I paid $1 to get you off that platform, that's all. You don't belong to me. You don't owe me nothing. Soon as you want to leave, you leave. Understand?" Clara didn't understand. Not at all. "Then why?" she whispered. Silas didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was even quieter than before. Because no one else was going to. He took her hand gently, giving her time to pull away if she wanted, and helped her down from the platform. Her bare feet hit the frozen ground, and she gasped at the cold. "Here." He was moving, shrugging something off. A moment later she felt heavy wool settling around her shoulders. His coat. It smelled like him. "Your feet," he said. "Can you walk?" Yes." "My horse is at the end of the street. You'll ride. I'll walk." "You don't have to." "I know I don't have to. Come on." He guided her through the crowd. She could feel people staring, hear them whispering. But Silas moved like they weren't even there. Steady, unhurried, unafraid. When they reached his horse, he helped her mount without a word. His hands were firm but careful, supporting her weight until she found her balance in the saddle. "You know how to ride?" "Not really." "That's all right. Hold the horn. Don't let go." Clara gripped the saddle horn with both hands. The leather was cold, but worn smooth, comfortable. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Home." "Your home?" "Yep." "Is it far?" "Far enough." He clicked his tongue, and the horse began to move. Clara swayed in the saddle, but Silas's hand was already there, steadying her. "Easy," he murmured. "I've got you." They walked in silence for a long time. Clara couldn't tell how long, minutes, maybe hours. The cold seeped through Silas's coat, through her thin dress, into her bones. But she didn't complain. She'd learned that lesson too. "The crowd back there," she finally said. "They knew you." "Yep." "They seemed afraid of you." "Some folks are." "Why?" No answer. Silas. "You ask a lot of questions, Clara May." "I can't see. Questions are all I have." A long pause. Then, unexpectedly, a low sound that might have been a chuckle. "Fair enough," he said. "What do you want to know?" "Everything. Who you are. Why you live alone. Why you bought me when no one else would. Why everyone in that crowd looked at you like you were a ghost." "That's a lot of everythings." "We've got a long walk." Another pause. Clara heard the rhythm of his boots in the snow, the steady breathing of the horse, the distant call of a crow. "My name's Silas Cade," he said finally. "I was a soldier in the war. Union side. After that, I was a deputy sheriff in Abilene for a while. Didn't last. Now I live alone in the hills and I don't bother nobody." "Why didn't it last being a deputy?" "Because I wouldn't do what they told me to do." "What did they tell you to do?" "Arrest a 12-year-old Apache boy for stealing a horse he didn't steal. A rancher's son started a fight with him, lost, and cried to his daddy. The sheriff wanted me to haul the boy in, make an example. I refused." "What happened?" "They fired me. The rancher and his friends ran the boy out of town anyway, beat him half to death first." Clara's chest tightened. "That's horrible." "That's the world, Clara May. Full of men who'd rather hurt the weak than admit they're wrong." Silence again. But this time it felt different. Warmer somehow. Like a door opening. "The people in Ellsworth," Clara said quietly. "They didn't believe me either. About Mr. Tate. About what really happened. I believe you." The words hit her like a physical blow. She actually gasped. "You don't even know me," she said. "You don't know if I'm lying. I've met a lot of liars, Clara May. You ain't one of them. How can you tell? Liars try too hard to be believed. They pile on details, make excuses, get angry when you question them. You just told me what happened. Straight and simple. That's how truth sounds. Clara's eyes burned. Tears she'd sworn never to cry again were threatening to fall. "No one has believed me," she whispered. "In 3 years. Not one person." "Well, now one person does." The horse walked on. The wind picked up howling through the trees. Clara pulled Silas's coat tighter around her shoulders and let the tears fall. He didn't say anything. Didn't try to comfort her or tell her it would be all right. He just walked beside her, steady and silent, letting her feel whatever she needed to feel. By the time they reached his cabin, Clara had cried herself empty. "Steps," Silas said, breaking the long silence. "3 of them. I'll help you down." His hands found her waist, lifted her easily from the saddle, set her feet on solid ground. "Doors straight ahead. 10 paces. There's a threshold about 4 inches high. Don't trip on it." Clara walked forward, counting her steps. 9, 10. Her hand found the door frame. "Go on in. I'll see to the horse." She pushed the door open and stepped inside. Warmth hit her immediately. A fire was burning somewhere to her left. She could hear the crackle, feel the heat radiating toward her. The air smelled like pine and smoke and something else. Bread, maybe. Or stew. "There's a chair by the fire," Silas called from outside. 6 steps straight, then turn left. You'll feel it." Clara followed his directions, found the chair, sank into it. The wood was smooth beneath her fingers. Hand-carved, she realized. Someone had taken time with this chair, made it comfortable, made it last. She sat in the darkness of her blindness and listened to Silas moving around outside. The stomp of boots, the whinny of the horse, the creak of a stable door. Then footsteps on the porch, the door opening and closing. "You hungry?" Clara's stomach growled before she could answer. "I'll take that as a yes." She heard him moving around the cabin. Clanking of pots, splash of liquid, the scrape of a ladle against metal. A few minutes later, something warm was pressed into her hands. A bowl. "Careful, it's hot." Clara lifted the bowl to her lips and drank. Venison stew, thick with potatoes and carrots and herbs. The best thing she'd tasted in years. "This is good," she said between mouthfuls. "Don't sound so surprised." "I didn't mean... I know, I was joking." Clara stopped eating. "You joke?" "On occasion, when the mood strikes." She couldn't help it. She laughed. It came out rusty, like a door that hadn't been opened in too long. "That's a nice sound," Silas said quietly. Clara felt heat rising to her cheeks. She buried her face in the bowl, suddenly embarrassed. They ate in silence after that. When Clara finished, Silas took the bowl from her hands and she heard him washing it somewhere across the room. "There's a bed in the corner," he said. "You can sleep there tonight." "Where will you sleep?" "I've got a bedroll. The floor's fine." "I can't take your bed." "You're not taking it. I'm giving it." Clara opened her mouth to argue, but something in his tone told her it was pointless. "Thank you," she said instead. "For everything. The food, the coat, the $1. You don't need to thank me." "Yes, I do." She stood up, steadying herself against the chair. 3 years, Silas. 3 years I've been passed from hand to hand like an old rug nobody wants. 3 years of being told I'm worthless, broken, cursed, and then you... She stopped, took a breath. "You treated me like a person." Silence. Then footsteps, coming closer. He stopped just in front of her. She could feel his presence, his warmth, the sheer solid reality of him. "You are a person, Clara May," he said. "Same as me, same as anyone. What those people did to you, what they said about you, that don't define you. You understand, you get to decide who you are, not them." Clara's breath caught. "I don't know who I am anymore," she whispered. "I've been surviving so long I forgot how to be anything else." "Then you'll figure it out. And until you do..." He paused. You've got a roof over your head and food in your belly. Nobody's going to hurt you here. Nobody's going to sell you or trade you or throw you out. You're safe, Clara May. For the first time in 3 years, you're safe." The tears came again. Silent this time, sliding down her cheeks. Silas didn't move, didn't reach for her, just stood there, solid as a mountain, letting her cry. When she finally stopped, he handed her something soft. A cloth worn smooth from washing. "Bed's in the corner," he said again. "Get some rest." Clara wiped her face and walked toward where she'd heard him gesture. 12 steps. Her shin bumped something solid. "That's it. Quilts are folded at the foot, pillows at the head." She climbed into the bed. The mattress was stuffed with straw, but there was a feather pad on top that made it soft. The quilts were heavy warm. She lay in the darkness, the same darkness she'd lived in for 16 years, and listened to Silas moving around the cabin, stoking the fire, laying out his bedroll, settling onto the floor with a grunt. "Silas. Yeah. Thank you." A long pause. "Sleep, Clara May." She closed her eyes, and for the first time in 3 years, she didn't dream of falling. 10. Morning came slow and gray, the light filtering through a world Clara couldn't see, but could feel changing around her. The fire had burned low, she heard its quiet crackle, felt its diminished warmth. But there were other sounds now. Coffee percolating, the scrape of metal on metal, the heavy tread of boots crossing the floor. "You're awake." Clara sat up in the bed, pulling the quilt around her shoulders. "How'd you know?" "Your breathing changed." She tilted her head. "You were listening to me breathe. I listened to everything. Habit. From being a soldier. From staying alive." Clara heard him pour something coffee from the smell, and footsteps approached the bed. "Here, careful, it's hot." She reached out, and he guided the cup into her hands. The tin was warm but not burning. She wrapped her fingers around it, letting the heat seep into her cold bones. "What time is it?" "Just past dawn. Sun's barely up." "It snowed last night." "How'd you know that?" "The air sounds different when there's fresh snow on the ground, quieter, like the world got a blanket pulled over it." Silas made a sound that might have been appreciation. "You notice a lot of things, Clara May." "When you can't see, you learn to pay attention to everything else." She sipped the coffee. Strong, bitter, perfect. "What happens now?" she asked. "What do you mean?" "I mean, what do I do? Where do I go?" "You don't have to go anywhere." Clara lowered the cup. "I can't just stay here forever." "Why not?" "Because—" She hesitated. "Because people will talk. A man living alone with a woman. Let them talk." "But—" "Clara." His voice was firm, but not unkind. "I've been living in these hills for 4 years. I don't go to town unless I have to. I don't care what people say about me. Never have. And as for you—" He paused. "You've got nowhere else to go. No money, no family, no friends. Until that changes, you stay here. That's all there is to it." Clara sat with that for a moment. The coffee warmed her hands. The fire crackled softly. Outside, she could hear the wind rattling the trees. "I don't want to be a burden," she said finally. "You're not." "I can't see. I can't work the way other people—" "You can work plenty, just different." "Like what?" "Like cooking, like sewing, like tending the garden come spring, like keeping the fire going when I'm out hunting." He shifted the floor, creaking beneath him. "You're blind, Clara May. Not useless. There's a difference." She felt something loosen in her chest, something that had been tight for so long she'd forgotten it could feel any other way. "You really believe that?" she whispered. "I wouldn't say it if I didn't." Clara lifted the cup and took another long sip of coffee. The bitter warmth spread through her, chasing away the last of the night's cold. "All right," she said. "I'll stay, for now." Good. She heard him stand, heard his boots cross the floor toward the door. Where are you going? Check the horse. Might go hunting later if the weather holds. You'll be all right here. I think so. If you need anything, just call. I won't be far. The door opened. Cold air rushed in, carrying the smell of snow and pine. Silas? Yeah. Clara turned her face toward the sound of his voice. Why are you being so kind to me? A long silence. When he spoke again, his voice was strange, rough, like the words were being dragged out of him against their will. Because someone should have been kind to you a long time ago, and nobody was, and that ain't right. The door closed. His footsteps faded into the snow. Clara sat in the silence holding her coffee cup and wondered if she was still dreaming. Dib. The first week passed in a blur of small discoveries. Clara learned the cabin. 12 steps from bed to fire. 8 from fire to table. 6 from table to door. There was a window above the wash basin that let in cold air if the shutter wasn't latched tight. A loose board by the stove that creaked when you stepped on it. Silas taught her without fussing over her. He didn't grab her arm when she stumbled, didn't rush to catch things when she knocked them over. He just told her where things were, let her figure out the rest on her own. Cups are on the second shelf, higher than you're reaching. There you go. Wood box is next to the stove. Don't kick it with your bare feet, you'll get splinters. Outhouse is 30 paces straight out the back door. There's a rope strung from the porch to guide you. Little by little, the cabin stopped being a strange place and started being home. One evening, as they sat by the fire after supper, Clara asked about the carved chair she was sitting in. Did you make this? Yeah. It's beautiful. She ran her fingers over the smooth armrests. I can feel how beautiful it is, the way the wood curves, the way it all fits together. My pa was a carpenter, taught me before the war. Did you make all the furniture here? Most of it. The bed frame, the table, the chairs. Not the stove, though. Had to buy that in town. Clara smiled. I should hope so. She heard it again, that low sound that might have been a laugh. There it is, she said. What? You laughing? That's twice now. Don't get used to it. Too late. Silence settled between them. Comfortable now, like an old blanket they were learning to share. Silas. Tell me about the war. The silence changed. Got heavier. That's not a good bedtime story, Clara May. I don't want a bedtime story. I want to understand you. Why? Because you're the first person in 3 years who's treated me like I matter. I want to know who you are. She heard him shift in his chair, heard the crackle of the fire. Waited. I enlisted in '62, he said finally. I was 22. Thought I was going to be a hero. Save the Union free, the slaves come home covered in glory. What happened? I found out what war really is. Men dying in ditches. Boys crying for their mothers. Blood soaking into mud until you can't tell where one ends and the other begins. His voice was flat, distant. I killed people, Clara. A lot of people. Some of them were shooting at me. Some of them were just in the way. Clara said nothing, just listened. I had a brother, Thomas, 2 years younger than me. He enlisted right after I did. Followed me into hell because he thought I could protect him. What happened to him? The silence stretched so long that Clara thought he wasn't going to answer. Gettysburg, Silas said finally. 3rd day of fighting. We were holding a stone wall trying to keep back the Confederate charge. Thomas was right next to me. And then... He stopped, took a breath. A cannonball hit the wall, 10 feet away from us. Thomas caught a piece of stone right through the chest, died in my arms before the charge was even over. Clara's hand found its way to her heart. Silas. I carried him off that field, buried him myself, and then I kept fighting because that's all I knew how to do anymore. When did it end, the war, I mean? 65. But the war in my head? Another pause. That one hasn't ended yet. Clara understood that. Understood it better than she could say. Is that why you live alone? Part of it. After the war, after they kicked me out of the sheriff's office, I figured I wasn't fit for civilized company anymore. Too much blood on my hands, too many ghosts in my head. Better to stay away from people than risk hurting them. You haven't hurt me. Not yet. Silas. Clara leaned forward. You're not going to hurt me. You don't know that. Yes, I do. How? She considered the question. Because you're careful, she said finally. Every time you hand me something, every time you guide me somewhere, you're so gentle. Like you're afraid of breaking me. A man who's careful like that, he's not going to hurt anyone. Not on purpose. Silas was quiet for so long that Clara thought he might have fallen asleep. Nobody's called me gentle before, he said finally. Then nobody's been paying attention. She heard him stand, heard his footsteps cross to the door, then stop. It's late, he said. You should sleep. So should you. I will. Eventually. The door opened and closed. Clara heard his boots on the porch, then nothing. She sat by the fire for a long time, thinking about soldiers and brothers and all the different kinds of blindness in the world. 2 weeks after Silas brought her home, Clara woke to find something resting against the side of her bed. She sat up, reached down, and her fingers closed around smooth wood. A cane, long and straight with a curved handle that fit perfectly in her palm. I made it yesterday, Silas said from across the room. Juniper wood, strong but light. The tip's got rubber on it so it won't slip on ice. Clara ran her hands along the length of it. Felt the places where he'd sanded the wood smooth, where he'd carved a slight grip into the handle. You made this for me. You need to be able to move around without holding onto walls and furniture. This'll help. Clara stood up, gripping the cane. It felt like an extension of her arm. Natural. Right. How do I use it? Sweep it in front of you as you walk. Left, right, left, right. It'll tell you what's ahead before you run into it. Clara took a tentative step. Swept the cane. Took another step. You're a natural, Silas said. I'm terrified. That's normal. Keep going. She crossed the cabin cane, tapping against the floor, reached the wall, turned, came back. How was that? Good. Now try it with your eyes closed. Clara laughed. They're always closed, Silas. That sound again. Quiet. Almost surprised. That was a joke, Clara May. I know. I was joking back. Well, would you look at that? For the first time in 3 years, Clara felt something she'd almost forgotten existed. Hope. The cane changed everything. Within a week, Clara could navigate the cabin without touching the walls. Within 2 weeks, she'd mastered the porch and the 3 uneven steps leading down to the yard. Within 3 weeks, she was making her way to the outhouse and back without needing the guide rope. Silas watched her progress without comment, but she could hear the approval in his silence. One morning she made her way to the garden 35 paces from the porch's slight downhill slope and knelt in the frozen soil. What are you doing? Clara startled. She hadn't heard him approach. Learning the garden, she said. For spring. It's December. Nothing's growing. I know, but I want to know where everything is. So when the snow melts, I can help. She heard him crouch beside her. Lavender's here, he said, guiding her hand to a patch of dirt. Sage is there. Tomatoes go in the back, where they get the most sun. And the nettles. Corner. Far corner. Don't go there without gloves. Clara smiled. Noted. They knelt in the frozen garden together, Silas pointing out where things would grow, and Clara memorizing every detail. The cold seeped through her dress, but she didn't care. For the first time in years, she was planning for a future she might actually get to see. Silas. Yeah. I want to learn to do more, not just move around. I want to cook properly. I want to clean. I want to... She hesitated. I want to be useful. You already are. I want to be more useful. He was quiet for a moment. All right, he said finally. We'll start tomorrow. I'll teach you everything I know. Clara's heart swelled. Really? Yeah, but first... He stood offering her his hand. Let's get inside before we both freeze to death. She took his hand and let him pull her to her feet. His grip was warm despite the cold. Strong. Safe. She didn't let go right away. Neither did he. Thank you, she whispered. For everything. You already thanked me, Clara May, about 100 times. Then here's 101. He made that sound again, the one that might have been a laugh. Come on, he said. I'll make coffee. They walked back to the cabin together. Clara's cane tapping against the frozen ground, Silas's hand still holding hers. And in that moment, despite everything that had happened, despite the auction block and the burlap hood, and the 3 years of darkness and despair, Clara May Holloway felt something she'd never expected to feel again. She felt like she was home. The days settled into a rhythm that Clara hadn't known she needed. Morning coffee by the fire, lessons in the kitchen, how to tell when water was boiling by the sound alone, how to feel the weight of flour in a cup, how to know when bread was done by the hollow thump when you knocked on the crust. Afternoons spent practicing with her cane, mapping the world step by careful step. Evenings by the hearth talking or not talking, both equally comfortable. It was the silence that surprised her most. For 3 years, silence had meant danger. Silence meant someone was watching, waiting, planning something cruel. Silence meant she had to stay alert, had to listen for the footstep that would come too close, the hand that would grab too hard. But Silas's silence was different. It wrapped around her like a blanket. It asked nothing. It demanded nothing. It simply existed, steady and warm, a presence she could lean into without fear. You're quiet today, she said one afternoon, sitting at the kitchen table while he worked at something across the room. Metal on metal. A scraping sound, sharpening maybe. I'm always quiet. Quieter than usual, I mean. The scraping stopped. You can tell the difference. I can tell a lot of things. Clara turned her face toward him. You've been pacing more. Checking the windows, going outside at odd hours. Something's bothering you. A long pause. You notice too much, Clara May. You keep saying that like it's a bad thing. It's not bad, just inconvenient sometimes. Clara waited. She'd learned that pushing Silas for answers only made him retreat further. Better to leave space, let him fill it in his own time. The scraping resumed, then stopped again. There were tracks in the snow this morning, he said finally. Near the tree line, someone's been watching the cabin. Clara's hands tightened on the edge of the table. Who? Don't know yet. Could be nothing. Could be a hunter who got curious about the smoke from the chimney. But you don't think so? No, I don't. Is it because of me? Silas didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was careful, measured. Might be. Word travels in these parts. A man buys a blind woman at auction, takes her up into the hills. People talk. What kind of people? The wrong kind. Clara's stomach twisted. She'd been foolish to think she could escape, foolish to think that a month of safety meant anything. The world didn't forget women like her. It tracked them down, dragged them back, reminded them of their place. I should go, she said. If someone's looking for me, I should leave before... No. The word was sharp, final. Silas. I said no. His footsteps crossed the room, stopped in front of her. You're not running. Not from this cabin, not from me, not from whoever's out there in those trees. You understand? But if they're dangerous, then I'll handle it. You can't just... Clara. His voice softened, but only slightly. I've spent 4 years in these hills. I know every trail, every hiding spot, every way in and out. Whoever's watching, they're on my ground now. And I don't lose on my ground. Clara wanted to argue. Wanted to tell him that he didn't understand that men like the ones who'd hunted her before didn't play fair, didn't follow rules. But something in his voice stopped her. A certainty she hadn't heard before. Not arrogance, Silas didn't have an arrogant bone in his body, but something deeper. A quiet, unshakable confidence. Okay, she said finally. Okay, I'll stay. Good. He moved away back to whatever he'd been working on. Now, you ready to learn how to make biscuits? Clara blinked. Biscuits? You said you wanted to be useful. Biscuits are useful. We were just talking about someone watching the cabin, and now you want to make biscuits. Best thing to do when trouble's brewing is keep your hands busy. Keeps the mind from spinning in circles. Clara couldn't argue with that logic. She stood up, reached for her cane. All right, she said. Teach me. For the next hour, Silas guided her through the process. Flour measured by feel, not sight. Lard cut in with a fork until the texture was right. Like coarse sand, he said, and she understood immediately. Buttermilk added slowly. Dough worked just enough and no more. Don't over-knead, he warned. Makes them tough. How do I know when to stop? When it feels like your earlobe. Clara laughed. My earlobe. Press your earlobe. Feel that soft but springy. That's what the dough should feel like. She pressed her earlobe, then pressed the dough. He was right. The textures matched. You're a strange teacher, Silas Cade. But a good one. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. She shaped the biscuits and placed them in the pan by feel, Silas only correcting her once when she put two too close together. Into the oven. Wait. Listen for the sizzle smell for the golden brown. When they came out, Clara pulled one apart and tasted it. Flaky. Buttery. Perfect. Well, Silas asked. Not bad. Not bad. Those are the best biscuits I've had in years. Then you've been eating terrible biscuits. That sound again. The one she lived for. His almost laugh. Eat your biscuit, Clara May. She ate too. So did he. And for a little while she forgot about the tracks in the snow, forgot about the shadows in the tree line. But only for a little while. The visitor came 3 days later. Clara heard the hoofbeats before Silas did, or maybe he heard them at the same time, and just didn't show it. Either way, he was on his feet and at the window before the rider even crested the ridge. Stay inside, he said. Who is it? Don't know yet. Clara heard him take his rifle from the rack by the door, the click of the hammer being checked. Silas. It's all right, just being careful. The door opened. Cold air rushed in. Then it closed again, and she was alone. Clara moved to the window, pressing her palm against the cold glass, as if she could somehow feel what was happening outside. She heard voices, Silas's low rumble, then another, older, gravelly, familiar in a way she couldn't place. The conversation went on for several minutes. Then footsteps on the porch, the door opening. Clara. Silas's voice was strange, tight. We have a visitor. Heavy boots entered the cabin, the smell of horse and leather and tobacco. Ma'am? The older voice was closer now, respectful but guarded. Name's Harlan Webb. I'm a retired marshal from up Abilene way. Friend of Silas's, if he'll still claim me. We served together, Silas said. Before he went lawman, and I went hermit, Harlan finished. I was going to say independent. Same thing coming from you. Clara heard a chair scrape across the floor. Harlan sitting down. Silas remained standing. She could tell by the position of his voice the tension in the air. "I'll get coffee," she said, needing something to do with her hands. "Obliged, ma'am." She made her way to the stove, grateful for the routine. Pour the water, set the pot, wait for the boil. The familiar sounds and motions helped calm the fear that was rising in her chest. "What brings you up here, Harlan?" Silas asked. Direct, no small talk. "Word from town. Thought you should hear it." "I'm listening." "There's a man been asking questions in Dodge City. Calls himself Emmett Bryce. Says he's a bounty hunter, but he's got the look of something worse." Clara's hands froze on the coffee pot. "What kind of questions?" Silas asked. "Questions about a blind woman. Young, brown hair, sold at auction about a month back." A pause. "Says he's got papers proving she's his legal property. Says whoever's got her is harboring a fugitive." The coffee pot slipped. Clara caught it before it fell, but not before some of the water splashed onto her hand. She didn't feel the burn. "Those papers are forged," she heard herself say. Her voice sounded strange, far away. "I figured as much," Harlan said. "But forged or not, he's waving them around like they're gospel, and there's men in town who'll believe anything if there's money attached." "How much money?" Silas asked. $50 for information. 100 for the woman herself." Silence. Clara felt the walls of the cabin closing in around her. "Clara." Silas's voice closer now. "Come sit down." She let him guide her to the chair by the fire. Her hands were shaking. She couldn't stop them. "This Emmett Bryce," Silas said. "What else do you know about him?" "Not much. Rides alone. Armed to the teeth. Got a mean look about him, the kind that says he's done things he don't regret." Harlan shifted in his chair. "He's been tracking someone for weeks, Silas. Following a trail from Wichita to Ellsworth to Dodge. And now he's sniffing around here. He knows where I live." "Not yet. But it's only a matter of time. You ain't exactly invisible, old friend." Clara found her voice. "Who sent him? Who's paying him to find me?" Harlan was quiet for a moment. "Don't know, ma'am. Could be anyone with money and a grudge. Someone from that boarding house, maybe. Someone who don't want the truth about that dead man coming out." Clara's mind raced. Mr. Tate had friends. Powerful friends. She'd always known that. But she'd hoped foolishly that they'd forgotten about her. That she was too small, too insignificant to chase across 2 states and through 3 years. She'd been wrong. "What do we do?" she asked. "We don't do anything," Silas said. "You stay here. I handle this." "Silas." "He ain't taking you, Clara. I don't care how many forged papers he's got. But if he's got the law on his side, the law's only as good as the men enforcing it. And I know every sheriff and deputy from here to Denver. Most of them owe me favors. And the ones who don't—" Silas didn't answer. Harlan cleared his throat. "There's something else. This Bryce fellow, he's been asking about Nettie Pierce, too." Clara's breath caught. "Nettie? Why?" "Seems someone told him there might be a witness to what happened at that boarding house. Someone who saw the whole thing but never spoke up." Harlan's voice was grim. "He's headed to Ellsworth next, looking for her." Clara was on her feet before she knew she was moving. "We have to warn her. If he finds her first." "Clara, slow down. You don't understand." She was pacing now, her cane forgotten, her hands clutching at the air. "Nettie's the only one who knows the truth. The only one who saw what really happened. If Bryce gets to her before she can testify—" "Testify to who?" Silas asked. Clara stopped. "What?" "Testify to who, Clara? There's no trial. There's no court case. The man who accused you is dead. There's nobody to clear your name with." "But there has to be someone, a judge, a sheriff, someone who—" "That's not how it works." Silas's voice was gentle but firm. "In towns like Ellsworth, justice is whatever the powerful men say it is. And the powerful men decided you were guilty. That's the end of it. So what am I supposed to do? Just live in hiding forever, always looking over my shoulder, always waiting for someone like Bryce to find me?" Silence. Then Harlan spoke. There might be another way. Clara turned toward his voice. What way? The man who died Tate, his brother, took over the boarding house after he passed. Name's Vernon. Word is he's not like his brother. He's been trying to clean up the business, make amends for some of the things Tate did. You think he'd listen? Clara asked. I think he might, especially if there's a witness willing to tell him what really happened. If this Nettie woman comes forward, talks to Vernon directly, he might be willing to drop the whole thing, call off the dogs. And if he's not willing, Harlan sighed, then you're back where you started. But at least you'd have tried. Clara felt hope and fear warring in her chest. It was a risk, a huge risk, but it was also the only chance she might ever have. I have to go to Ellsworth, she said. I have to find Nettie before Bryce does. Absolutely not. Silas's voice was sharp. Silas. You're blind, Clara. It's the middle of winter, and there's a man hunting you who won't think twice about putting a bullet in your head. I know all of that, but I can't just sit here and wait for him to find me. I can't let Nettie get hurt because of me. I have to do something. Then I'll go. You stay here. And what, hide under the bed until you come back? Clara shook her head. I've been hiding for 3 years. I'm done hiding. This isn't about hiding. This is about staying alive. No. Clara's voice hardened. This is about taking my life back. This is about standing up and facing the people who tried to destroy me. And I can't do that from inside this cabin. Silas was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was different, softer. You really want to do this? I have to. Even knowing what might happen. Especially knowing what might happen. Another pause, then a sigh. All right, we'll leave at first light. Silas. I said we, you and me, together. You think I'm letting you walk into that lion's den alone? Clara felt something break open in her chest. Something she'd been holding tight for so long she'd forgotten it was there. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me yet. We've got a long ride ahead of us. Harlan stood up his chair, scraping against the floor. I'll head back to town, see if I can find out more about Bryce, slow him down if I can. Be careful, Silas said. Always am. Harlan moved toward the door, then stopped. Silas, she's got grit, this one. Don't let her get killed. I won't. The door opened and closed. Hoofbeats faded into the distance. Clara and Silas stood in the silence of the cabin, the fire crackling softly between them. You should eat something, Silas said finally. Get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. I'm not hungry. Eat anyway. You'll need your strength. Clara nodded. She let him guide her to the table, let him put a plate in front of her. But her mind was already miles away, racing down snow-covered trails toward a town she'd fled 3 years ago. Silas. Yeah. What if Nettie won't talk? What if she's still too scared? Then we find another way. What if there isn't another way? There's always another way. He sat down across from her. I learned that in the war. When you think you're out of options, that's when you look harder. There's always a door nobody's thought to open. Clara picked at her food. What was it like, the war? She felt him stiffen. She'd asked him before, and he'd answered, but only in pieces. Maybe tonight he'd give her more. It was... He paused, searching for words. It was like watching the world end in slow motion. Every day a little more gone, a little more broken, and you couldn't stop it. All you could do was keep putting one foot in front of the other and pray you'd still be standing when it was over. Were you scared? Every minute of every day. How did you keep going? Because Thomas needed me, my brother. His voice caught. He was scared too. More than me, I think. He was just a kid, really. 18 when he enlisted. Barely knew how to hold a rifle. But he followed me because he trusted me. Believed I'd keep him safe. What was he like? Funny. That's what I remember most. In the middle of all that death, all that misery, Thomas could still find something to laugh about. Made me crazy sometimes, but it also kept me sane. You miss him? Every day. Clara reached across the table, found his hand. Held it. I'm sorry, she said, for asking about things that hurt. Don't be. It helps sometimes. Talking about him makes him feel less gone. They sat like that for a while, hand in hand, the fire warming them against the cold outside. You know what I remember about my parents, Clara said finally. My mother used to sing, every morning while she made breakfast. I don't even know what the songs were, hymns maybe, or folk songs from wherever her family came from. But I remember the sound of her voice, the way it made the whole house feel safe. That's a good memory. It's all I have left. That and the smell of my father's pipe tobacco. He used to let me sit on his lap while he smoked. I'd fall asleep there listening to his heartbeat. How old were you when they died? 12, 5 years after I went blind. Clara's voice was steady, but her grip on his hand tightened. The fire happened at night. I woke up to screaming. My father carried me out of the house and told me to run, to keep running until I couldn't hear the flames anymore. So I ran. And when I finally stopped, when I finally turned around, there was nothing left. Just heat and smoke and silence. Clara. They never found out who did it. Everyone knew it was the railroad men. Our land was in the way of their tracks, but nobody would say it. Nobody would accuse them. And she took a shaky breath. I was just a blind girl with nowhere to go. So they sent me to the boarding house. And you know the rest. Silas squeezed her hand. I'm sorry. Don't be. It was a long time ago. Doesn't mean it stops hurting. No, it doesn't. Clara wiped her eyes with her free hand. But talking about it, you're right. It helps. Makes them feel less gone. They sat in silence for a while longer. Then Silas stood up, still holding her hand. Come on, he said. You need to sleep. I don't think I can. Try anyway. He led her to the bed, helped her under the quilts. His hands were gentle like always. Careful. Silas. Yeah. Stay. Just for a minute. I don't want to be alone right now. A pause. Then the creak of him sitting on the edge of the bed. I'm here, he said. Clara closed her eyes. The darkness was the same as always, complete absolute. But for the first time, it didn't feel lonely. Tell me something, she whispered. Something good. Something that isn't about war or death or running. Silas was quiet for a moment. Then, there's a place up in the high country, a valley hidden between two ridges. I found it my first year in these hills. There's a creek that runs through it clear as glass. And in spring the whole valley fills with wildflowers. Indian paintbrush, columbine, mountain bluebell. Colors you wouldn't believe. I've never seen colors, Clara murmured. I went blind too young. Then I'll describe them to you. The paintbrush is red like the inside of a fire. The columbine is blue like the sky just after sunset when the light is starting to fade. And the bluebells are pale soft, like the sound of a distant bell. Like the sound of a bell, Clara repeated. I like that. When this is over, when Bryce is dealt with and your name is clear, I'll take you there, to the valley. You can walk through the wildflowers and feel the sun on your face. Promise. Promise. Clara smiled. Somewhere between one breath and the next, she fell asleep. When she woke, Silas was gone from the edge of the bed, but she could hear him moving around the cabin, preparing for the journey ahead. And despite everything, the fear, the uncertainty, the danger waiting for them on the road, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. She felt ready. The ride to Ellsworth took 3 days. Clara rode in front of Silas, his arms on either side of her, holding the reins. She could feel the heat of him against her back, the steady rhythm of his breathing. It was the closest she'd been to another person in years, and she tried not to think about how much she didn't want it to end. They spoke little during the days, saving their energy for the ride. But at night, camped in whatever shelter they could find, a cave, an abandoned barn, once just a stand of pines with a fire between them and the wind, they talked. Silas told her about the places he'd been. California before the war. Texas after. The mountains of Colorado, where the air was so thin, it made your head spin. Clara told him about her childhood. The games she'd played before she went blind. The books her mother used to read her. The dreams she'd had of growing up, getting married, having children of her own. Do you still have those dreams? Silas asked one night, his voice quiet in the darkness. Clara considered the question. I don't know. For so long I've just been trying to survive. Dreams felt like luxuries I couldn't afford. And now. She paused. Now I'm starting to think maybe I can afford them again. She felt him shift behind her, his shoulder brushing against hers. What kind of dreams? He asked. Small ones. A home that's really mine. Work that matters. People who care about me. She hesitated. Someone who looks at me and sees me. Not a burden. Not a curse. Just me. That's not a small dream, Clara May. That's everything. Is it too much to ask for? No. His voice was rough. It's not nearly enough. They didn't speak again that night. But when Clara finally fell asleep, she dreamed of wildflowers and valleys, and a voice that sounded like coming home. On the third day they reached Ellsworth. Clara knew they were close before Silas said anything. The sounds changed: more voices, more movement, the clatter of wagons, and the ring of hammer on anvil, the smell of wood smoke and manure, and something frying in a pan. We're here, Silas said, confirming what she already knew. Where's the diner, the Lucky Pan? That's where Nettie works. Main Street, according to Harlan. We'll find it. They rode slowly through town, Silas describing what he saw. The general store with its faded sign. The saloon with its swinging doors. The church at the end of the street, its steeple reaching toward a gray sky. There, he said finally. The Lucky Pan. Just ahead on the right. Clara's heart began to pound. Is she there? Can you see her? Can't see inside from here. We'll have to go in. Silas dismounted and helped Clara down. She gripped her cane, feeling the familiar weight of it in her palm. Ready? He asked. No, but let's do it anyway. They walked into the diner together. The smell hit her first: grease and coffee, and something sweet like pie. Then the sounds. Plates clattering. Conversations murmuring. A woman's voice calling out an order. Nettie. Clara would recognize that voice anywhere. She'd heard it every day for 2 years at the boarding house. Heard it whisper warnings when Tate was in a bad mood. Heard it cry the night Clara was dragged away in chains. Nettie, she said, her voice carrying across the small room. The sound stopped. Conversations died. Clara felt every eye in the place turn toward her. Who's asking? Nettie's voice was guarded, afraid. It's Clara May Holloway. Silence. Then the clatter of a pan hitting the floor. Oh my God! Footsteps rushing closer. Oh my God! Clara, is that really you? Hands grabbed her arms. Not rough, desperate. Shaking. It's me, Nettie. It's really me. I thought you were dead. Nettie's voice broke. I thought they killed you years ago. I've been carrying that guilt, Clara, every single day. I should have spoken up. I should have told them the truth. But I was so scared, and Tate's friends were everywhere, and I know. Clara reached up, found Nettie's face. Felt the tears streaming down her cheeks. I know, Nettie. I don't blame you. You should. God knows I blame myself. Then stop. It's over now. Nettie pulled her into a hug, fierce and tight. Clara hugged her back, feeling something loosen in her chest. 16 years she'd carried this weight. The injustice, the betrayal, the loneliness of being abandoned by everyone who should have helped her. But here was Nettie alive and sorry, and ready to make things right. Maybe there was still hope after all. Silas cleared his throat. "We should talk somewhere private." Yes, of course." Nettie pulled back, wiping her eyes. "There's a storeroom in the back. No one will bother us there." She led them through the diner, past curious stares and whispered questions. Clara kept her head high, her cane tapping steadily against the floor. In the storeroom, surrounded by sacks of flour and cans of preserved fruit, Nettie told them everything. She told them about the night Tate died, how she'd heard him yelling, heard Clara screaming, how she'd come running and seen him at the top of the stairs swaying drunk, his hands reaching for Clara, how Clara had pushed him away, just pushed, nothing more, and he'd stumbled backward and fallen. "It wasn't murder," Nettie said, her voice shaking. "It wasn't even an accident, really. He did it to himself. If he hadn't been drunk, if he hadn't been trying to hurt her, he never would have fallen. But no one wanted to hear that. His friends just wanted someone to blame." "Will you say that to Vernon?" Clara asked. "Tate's brother." Nettie hesitated. "Vernon's different. Not like his brother. He's been trying to undo some of the damage Tate caused. But I don't know if he'll believe me." "You have to try," Clara said. "There's a man coming, a bounty hunter named Emmett Bryce. He's got forged papers saying I'm his property. If he gets here before we clear my name—" "I know about Bryce." Nettie's voice dropped. "He was here 2 days ago, asking questions." Clara's blood ran cold. "What did you tell him?" "Nothing. I pretended I didn't know you. But he's smart, Clara. He knows I'm hiding something. He'll be back." "Then we don't have much time." Silas stepped forward. "Where can we find Vernon?" "He's usually at the boarding house during the day, managing things." "Then that's where we're going." Clara reached out and found Nettie's hand. "Will you come with us?" A long pause. Clara could feel Nettie trembling. "Yes," she said finally. "I've been a coward for 3 years. It's time to stop." They walked out of the diner together, 3 people united by a truth that had been buried too long. The snow was falling harder now, thick flakes swirling in the wind. Clara pulled her coat tighter around her shoulders and gripped her cane. Somewhere out there, Emmett Bryce was hunting her. Somewhere out there, danger was closing in. But for the first time in 3 years, Clara May Holloway wasn't running. She was fighting back. The boarding house stood at the end of Miller Street, and Clara felt its shadow long before they reached the door. She didn't need eyes to know this place. Her body remembered it, the creak of the 3rd step, the way the wind whistled through the gap under the front door, the smell of lye soap and old wood that had seeped into her skin during 2 years of scrubbing floors on her hands and knees. "You all right?" Silas asked, his voice low beside her. "No." Clara gripped her cane tighter. "But I'm not turning back." Nettie walked on her other side close enough that their shoulders almost touched. Clara could hear her breathing, quick, shallow, scared, but still moving forward. "Vernon's office is on the 2nd floor, Nettie said. "Used to be his brother's. He changed some things, but—" She trailed off. "But it still feels like Tate's," Clara finished. "Yeah." They climbed the porch steps together. Clara counted them without thinking, 5 like always, and stopped at the door. "I'll do the talking," Silas said. "At least at first. Let me get a read on him before—" "No." Clara's voice was firm. "This is my story, my truth. I need to be the one to tell it." Silas was quiet for a moment. Then his hand found her elbow, squeezed gently. "All right, but I'm right here if you need me." "I know." Nettie pushed open the door, and they stepped inside. The smell hit Clara like a fist, that same lye and wood, but underneath it, something else. Something that made her stomach turn. The ghost of cheap whiskey and cigar smoke. The memory of a man who had tried to own her. "Can I help you folks?" The voice came from the left, young female, uncertain. We're here to see Vernon Tate, Nettie said. It's urgent. Mr. Tate don't see visitors without an appointment. Tell him it's about his brother. Clara stepped forward, her cane tapping against the worn floorboards. Tell him it's about the night he died. Silence. Clara could feel the girl's eyes on her, could feel the questions forming behind them. Wait here, the girl said finally. Footsteps retreated up the stairs. They waited. Clara listened to the sounds of the house, the tick of a clock somewhere nearby, the murmur of voices from other rooms, the creak of old timbers settling in the cold. 3 years she'd been away from this place, but it still knew her, still held her memories in its walls like prisoners. Footsteps on the stairs, heavier this time. A man. I'm Vernon Tate. The voice was deep but not unkind, cautious like a man who'd learned to be careful. My girl says you want to talk about my brother. Yes, sir. Clara turned toward his voice. My name is Clara May Holloway. I'm the woman who was blamed for his death. The silence that followed was thick enough to cut. I know who you are, Vernon said finally. I've seen the wanted notices. Then you know I'm supposed to be a murderer. That's what they say. They're wrong. Clara took a breath. I didn't kill your brother, Mr. Tate. He died because he was drunk and he fell, and I can prove it. With respect, Miss Holloway, you can't prove anything. You're blind. You couldn't have seen what happened. No, but she did. Clara reached out, found Nettie's arm, pulled her forward. Nettie Pierce. She worked here the same time I did. She was there that night. She saw everything. Another silence. Clara heard Vernon shift his weight, heard the creak of leather as he crossed his arms. That true? He asked. You saw what happened? Nettie's voice came out thin, shaky. Yes, sir. I saw it all. Then why didn't you say anything? Why did you let this girl take the blame? Because I was scared. Nettie's voice cracked. Your brother had friends, powerful friends. They made it clear what would happen to anyone who contradicted the official story. I was a widow with 2 children to feed. I couldn't risk. So you let an innocent woman be condemned instead. Yes. The word came out as a sob. And I've hated myself for it every day since. But I'm here now. I'm ready to tell the truth. Whatever it costs me. Clara heard Vernon take a long breath, heard him pace across the floor, 3 steps turn, 3 steps back. Tell me, he said. Tell me exactly what happened that night. Nettie told him. Everything. The shouting that had woken her from sleep. The sound of footsteps in the hall. How she'd crept to Clara's door and seen through the crack Tate drunk and swaying his hands reaching for Clara's nightgown. Clara backing away, pleading with him to leave. Tate lunging forward, Clara pushing him back, and then the horrible sound of his body tumbling down the stairs. She didn't push him down, Nettie said. She pushed him away. There's a difference. If he hadn't been so drunk, if he'd been able to keep his balance, he would have just stumbled. But he was falling down drunk, and he fell down. Vernon was quiet for a long moment. Why should I believe you? He asked finally. You lied for 3 years. Why tell the truth now? Because I'm tired. Nettie's voice was raw. Tired of carrying this guilt. Tired of seeing Clara's face every time I close my eyes. Tired of knowing I let an innocent woman be destroyed to save my own skin. She took a shaky breath. Your brother wasn't a good man, Mr. Tate. I'm sorry to say it, but it's true. He hurt people. He used his power to take what he wanted and destroy anyone who got in his way. And Clara? Clara was just a blind girl trying to survive. She didn't deserve what happened to her. None of it. The silence stretched out. Clara's heart pounded in her ears. Then Vernon spoke, and his voice was different, softer, sad. I know what my brother was, he said. I've spent 3 years trying to undo the damage he caused, paying off his debts, apologizing to the people he wronged, trying to make this place something other than a monument to his cruelty. He paused. But I never knew about you, Miss Holloway. I never knew the full story of what happened that night. Would it have mattered? Clara asked. If you had known? I'd like to think so. But honestly, I don't know. 3 years ago, I was still trying to protect my brother's memory. Still telling myself he wasn't as bad as people said. Another pause. I was wrong. About a lot of things. So what happens now? Silas spoke for the first time, his voice cutting through the heaviness in the room. Vernon was quiet for a moment. There's a bounty hunter in town. Man named Bryce. He's been waving around papers saying Miss Holloway belongs to him. Those papers are forged, Silas said. I figured as much. Bryce has a reputation. He's not particular about the truth long as he gets paid. Vernon paused. He came to see me yesterday. Wanted to know if I had any information about where the blind woman might be hiding. I told him I didn't know anything. Did he believe you? No, but he couldn't prove I was lying, so he left. Vernon's voice hardened. He'll be back, though. Men like Bryce don't give up easy. Then we need to move fast, Clara said. If you believe us, if you believe Nettie, then we need to clear my name before Bryce can do any more damage. And how do you propose we do that? A public statement, from you, telling the town what really happened, that your brother's death was an accident, not a murder, that I'm innocent. That's a lot to ask, Miss Holloway. My brother may have been a bastard, but he was still my brother. Publicly admitting that he tried to assault a blind woman in her own room would be the right thing to do, Clara finished. I know it's hard. I know it costs you something. But Mr. Tate, it's cost me 3 years of my life. 3 years of being hunted and sold and passed around like an animal. 3 years of people looking at me like I was cursed, like I was garbage, like I wasn't even human. Her voice shook, but she kept going. I'm asking you to give me my name back, my dignity, my chance at a real life. And all I need from you is the truth. Silence fell over the room like snow. Then Vernon spoke, and his voice was rough with emotion. All right, I'll do it. I'll make a public statement clear your name. But it'll take time to arrange. The sheriff, the mayor, the newspaper, they'll all need to be involved. Can you stay hidden for a day or two while I set things up? We can manage, Silas said. There's a boarding house on the edge of town. The front door slammed open. Clara spun toward the sound, her cane raised instinctively. She heard boots on the floor, heavy, deliberate, and a voice that made her blood freeze. Well, looks like I found what I was looking for. Emmett Bryce. Clara had never heard his voice before, but she knew it was him. There was something in the sound of it, oily, confident, cruel, that told her everything she needed to know. You must be the blind woman, Bryce said. Clara May Holloway, the murderer who ran away. She's not a murderer. Silas stepped forward, putting himself between Clara and the voice. And she didn't run. She was sold. Makes no difference to me. Bryce's boots moved closer. I've got papers saying she's mine. Legal and proper. Those papers are forged and you know it. Maybe they are, maybe they ain't. But the law says possession is 9/10, and right now, I'm possessing. You're not possessing anything. Vernon's voice was cold. This is my property, and you're not welcome here. With all due respect, Mr. Tate, this ain't about you. It's about the woman, and the $50 I've been promised for bringing her back. $50. Clara's voice was steady despite the fear clawing at her chest. That's what I'm worth to you. $50. 100, actually. 50 for information, 50 for delivery. Bryce laughed. You should be flattered. Most runaways don't fetch half that. I'm not a runaway. I'm a free woman. Sure you are, sweetheart. That's why you're standing in a boarding house with a forged paper bounty hunter on your trail. Bryce's voice sharpened. Now, we can do this easy, or we can do this hard. Easy is you come with me quiet-like and nobody gets hurt. Hard is I take you anyway, and your friends here learn what happens to people who get in my way. She's not going anywhere with you. Silas's voice was like granite. And who's gonna stop me? You? Bryce laughed again. I know who you are, Cade. The hermit from the hills. The man who couldn't cut it as a lawman because he was too soft. A pause. You think you can protect her. You think you can stand against me. I think you should leave while you still can. Is that a threat? It's a fact. The tension in the room was suffocating. Clara could feel it pressing against her skin, could hear it in the shallow breathing of everyone around her. Then Bryce moved. Clara heard it, the rustle of fabric, the click of a hammer being pulled back, and she acted on instinct. She swung her cane in an arc, felt it connect with something solid. Bryce grunted, and then everything happened at once. A gunshot. A scream. Nettie. The crash of furniture being overturned. Bodies hitting the floor. Clara, down! Silas's voice, sharp with command. She dropped, hitting the floor hard, her hands scrabbling against the worn wood. Another gunshot deafeningly close. The smell of gunpowder filled her nose. Then silence. Silas? Clara's voice came out as a whisper. Silas, are you? I'm here. His hands found her, pulled her up. I'm okay. Are you hurt? No, I don't think so. She was shaking, her whole body trembling. What happened? Is he... He's down. Vernon's voice strained. Not dead, but he won't be getting up any time soon. Clara heard groaning. Bryce, she realized, somewhere on the floor nearby. You shot me, Bryce gasped. You actually shot me. Winged you, Silas corrected. Be grateful I wasn't aiming to kill. You'll hang for this, all of you. I've got legal papers. Your papers are garbage and everyone in this room knows it. Vernon's voice was hard. I'm going to the sheriff right now. I'm going to tell him everything, what my brother did, what you did, all of it. And when I'm done, you're going to be the one facing charges, not Miss Holloway. You can't. I can, and I will. Vernon moved toward the door. Silas, keep him here until the sheriff arrives. Miss Holloway, Miss Pierce, you're coming with me. We're ending this today. Clara felt Nettie's hand slip into hers, felt the woman squeeze hard. Let's go, Nettie whispered. Let's finish this. They walked out of the boarding house together, leaving Bryce bleeding on the floor and Silas standing guard over him. The snow had stopped falling, and the air was sharp and clean. Vernon, Clara said as they walked, why are you doing this? Really, it can't just be because Nettie told you the truth. Vernon was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with something that sounded like grief. My brother and I weren't close. He was older, meaner, always taking what he wanted without caring who got hurt. When he died, I thought maybe I could make something good out of what he left behind. Turn this place into something decent. He paused. But I've been lying to myself, pretending the past didn't matter, pretending that if I just didn't look at it, it would go away. And now I'm looking at it, and I don't like what I see. Vernon stopped walking. My brother tried to hurt you, Miss Holloway, tried to take something that wasn't his to take, and when you defended yourself, the whole town punished you for it. That's not justice. That's not even close to justice. And if I don't do something to fix it, he took a breath, then I'm just as guilty as he was. Clara felt something shift in her chest, something she hadn't expected to feel toward a man named Tate. Gratitude. Thank you, she said quietly, for believing us. Thank you for giving me the chance to make things right. They reached the sheriff's office, a squat building with a wooden sign that creaked in the wind. Vernon pushed open the door and called out, Sheriff Morgan, I need to speak with you. It's urgent. Footsteps from the back room, a door opening, a gravelly voice. Vernon, what's going on? I need to make a statement about my brother's death, about Clara May Holloway. Silence. Then the sheriff stepped forward. Clara heard the heavy tread of his boots, smelled coffee and tobacco. This about that bounty hunter been sniffing around? Sheriff Morgan asked. Partly, but it's bigger than that. Vernon took a breath. My brother didn't die because he was murdered, Sheriff. He died because he was drunk and he fell down the stairs. And the woman everyone blamed for it, the woman who's been running for 3 years, she's innocent. She was defending herself from a man who was trying to assault her. That's a serious accusation, Vernon. I've got a witness, Nettie Pierce. She was there that night. She saw everything. Nettie stepped forward. Clara felt her hand slip away as the woman moved to face the sheriff. It's true, Nettie said. Her voice was stronger now, steadier. I saw it all. Mr. Tate came into Clara's room. He was drunk, couldn't barely stand. He tried to force himself on her. She pushed him away and he stumbled backward into the hallway, lost his balance at the top of the stairs. She swallowed. He fell. She didn't push him. He just fell. Why didn't you say anything before? Because I was scared. Mr. Tate had friends, powerful friends. They made it clear what would happen to anyone who told a different story. So you let an innocent woman be condemned. Yes. Nettie's voice cracked. And I'll carry that shame for the rest of my life. But I'm telling the truth now. Whatever happens to me, I'm telling the truth. Sheriff Morgan was quiet for a long moment. Clara could hear him breathing, could hear the creak of his chair as he shifted his weight. And you believe her? He asked Vernon. I do. And more than that, I believe Clara. I've talked to her. I've looked in her eyes. He stopped, corrected himself. I've listened to her voice. She's not a murderer, Sheriff. She's a victim. And it's time this town admitted it. Another long silence. Then Sheriff Morgan spoke, and his voice was different. Softer. I remember when it happened, the night your brother died. I remember thinking something didn't add up. A blind girl barely 20 years old pushing a grown man down the stairs. It never made sense to me. He paused. But the Tate family was powerful. Your brother had friends in high places, and I took the easy path. Believed what I was told. Didn't ask the questions I should have asked. You can ask them now, Clara said. You can make it right. Can I? Morgan's voice was heavy with doubt. 3 years of your life, Miss Holloway. 3 years of running and hiding and being treated like an animal. Can anything make that right? No. Clara's voice was steady. But you can stop it from continuing. You can clear my name. You can arrest Emmett Bryce for what he's done, the forged papers, the harassment, the assault at the boarding house. You can make sure no one ever hunts me again. And if I do that, if I clear your name, what then? What do you want? Clara thought about the question, thought about all the things she'd dreamed of during those 3 long years. A home, safety, peace. But there was something else now, something she hadn't expected. I want to go home, she said. I want to live my life without fear. And I want the people who hurt me to know that they didn't win, that I survived, that I'm still standing. Sheriff Morgan was quiet for a moment. Then he stood up and Clara heard the scrape of his chair against the floor. All right, he said. Let's make this official. Vernon, I'll need your statement in writing. Miss Pierce, yours too. And Miss Holloway. He paused. I owe you an apology. The whole town does. What happened to you was wrong and we all share the blame. I don't want apologies, Clara said. I want my name back. Then you'll have it. By sunset today, there won't be a person in Ellsworth who doesn't know the truth. Clara felt something break inside her, something that had been holding her together through 3 years of hell, a wall of fear and anger and desperate hope. It crumbled, and what came flooding through was relief so powerful it made her knees weak. Nettie caught her, held her up. You did it, Nettie whispered. Clara, you did it. Clara couldn't speak. The tears were coming too fast, 3 years of them pouring down her cheeks like rain. She thought of Silas back at the boarding house, standing guard over the man who had hunted her. She thought of the cabin in the hills, the fire crackling in the hearth, the valley full of wildflowers waiting for spring. She thought of everything she'd lost, and everything she was about to gain. And for the first time in 3 years, Clara May Holloway allowed herself to believe that the worst was finally over. The sun was setting by the time they finished at the sheriff's office. Vernon had written his statement. Nettie had given her testimony, and Sheriff Morgan had sent deputies to arrest Emmett Bryce on charges of forgery, fraud, and assault. Clara stood on the wooden sidewalk outside the office, her face turned toward the fading warmth of the winter sun. The air was cold, but she barely felt it. Something inside her had thawed, and it was spreading warmth through her whole body. "Clara." Silas's voice. She turned toward it, and a moment later, his hand found hers. "It's done," she said. "It's really done." "I heard." His voice was rough. "Vernon told me everything." "Bryce? In a cell. Won't be getting out anytime soon." Clara squeezed his hand. "Thank you. For everything. For believing me. For protecting me. For—" She stopped, overwhelmed. "You don't need to thank me." "Yes, I do." She stepped closer, close enough to feel the heat of him. "You saved my life, Silas. Not just today, that day in Dodge City. You looked at a blind woman standing on an auction block, and you saw a person. You saw me. And that—" Her voice cracked. "That was everything." Silas was quiet for a long moment. Then his other hand came up, touched her face. Gentle, so gentle. "I didn't save you, Clara May," he said. "You saved yourself. I just walked beside you while you did it." Clara laughed through her tears. "That's the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me." "I ain't romantic." "You're lying." "Maybe a little." She reached up, found his face with her hands, felt the rough stubble on his jaw, the scar at the corner of his eye, the warmth of his skin against her palms. "Silas Cade," she said. "I can't see you. I'll never be able to see you. But I know you. I know the sound of your voice and the feel of your hands and the way you breathe when you're worried about me. I know you better than I've ever known anyone in my life. Clara, I'm not finished." She took a breath. "You asked me once what kind of dreams I had, and I told you small ones, a homework that matters, someone who sees me for who I really am." She paused. "But I was wrong. Those aren't small dreams. Those are everything. And I found them. I found them with you." Silas didn't speak, but she felt him lean forward, felt his forehead touch hers. "I found them with you too," he whispered. "Clara May Holloway, the bravest woman I've ever known." And standing there on the sidewalk with the last light of day fading around them and the whole town watching, Clara did something she'd been wanting to do for weeks. She kissed him. It was awkward and imperfect, and she missed his mouth at first, catching the corner of his lip instead. But then his arms were around her, pulling her close, and his mouth found hers properly, and it didn't matter that she couldn't see him, because she could feel him solid and warm and real. When they finally pulled apart, she was laughing and crying at the same time. "Was that okay?" she asked. I couldn't exactly aim." "It was perfect," Silas said, and she could hear the smile in his voice. "Absolutely perfect." They stayed in Ellsworth 2 more days. Sheriff Morgan insisted on it, said he wanted to make sure everything was proper, all the paperwork filed, all the statements recorded. But Clara knew the real reason. He wanted to make amends, wanted to show her that the town that had condemned her could also make things right. Vernon gave them a room at the boarding house, the same building where Clara had scrubbed floors and dodged Tate's wandering hands, now offered as a gesture of apology. She almost refused. Almost told him she'd rather sleep in the snow than spend another night under that roof. But Silas put his hand on her arm and said quietly, "Sometimes healing means walking back through the places that hurt you." So she stayed. The first night was hard. Clara lay in the narrow bed listening to the familiar creaks and groans of the old building, and her body remembered everything. The fear, the helplessness, the sound of footsteps in the hallway that might be coming for her. But then Silas knocked on her door. "Can't sleep either?" he asked. "No," Want some company?" She opened the door wider and he came in. He didn't touch her, didn't try to hold her. He just sat in the chair by the window and started talking. About nothing really. About the weather. About a horse he'd seen in the stable that reminded him of one he'd owned during the war. About the way the coffee at the diner down the street tasted like it had been brewed with old socks. Clara found herself laughing, and then crying, and then laughing again. "Thank you," she said when her emotions finally settled. "For what?" "For being here. For not trying to fix me." "Can't fix what ain't broken, Clara May?" She smiled in the darkness. "You always know the right thing to say." "That's a first. Usually I don't know what to say at all." "Maybe that's why you're so good at it. You don't overthink." Silas was quiet for a moment. "My brother used to say that I thought with my gut instead of my head. He meant it as a criticism. What do you think? I think my head gets me in trouble more often than my gut does." Clara laughed again. And somewhere in the middle of that laugh, the fear that had been gripping her chest finally loosened its hold. The second-day word spread through town about what had happened. About the blind woman who'd been wrongly accused. About the witness who'd finally come forward. About Vernon Tate standing up in front of God and everyone to admit his brother had been a monster. People came to see Clara. Not many. This was still a frontier town, and most folks minded their own business. But enough. A woman who ran the dry goods store brought her a new shawl, soft wool in a color Clara couldn't see, but the woman swore was beautiful. A young boy, maybe 10 or 11, knocked on her door and handed her a carved wooden bird, said he was sorry for throwing rocks at her when she used to walk past his house. "I didn't know," he mumbled. "I didn't know you were innocent." Clara knelt down, found his shoulder squeezed gently. "It's all right. You were just a child. I'm sorry anyway. I forgive you." The boy ran off, and Clara stood in the doorway for a long time afterward, holding the little wooden bird in her hands. "You okay?" Silas asked from behind her. "I don't know." She turned the bird over, feeling its smooth wings, its tiny carved beak. "I spent 3 years hating this town, hating everyone in it, and now they're trying to make it right. Does that erase what happened? No, nothing can erase it." Silas moved closer, close enough that she could feel his warmth. "But maybe it can make room for something new." Clara thought about that, about the difference between erasing and making room, about the way pain didn't disappear but could sometimes be pushed aside to let other things grow. "The wildflowers," she said suddenly. "What?" "The valley you told me about, the one with the wildflowers. You said you'd take me there." "I did." "Is that offer still good?" Silas was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft. "That offer is good for as long as you want it, Clara May. Forever, if you'll have it." She reached out, found his hand, laced her fingers through his. "Forever sounds about right." They left Ellsworth on the morning of the third day. The whole town came out to see them off. Well, not the whole town, but more people than Clara expected. Sheriff Morgan shook Silas's hand and told him to stay out of trouble. Vernon pressed a small pouch into Clara's palm and told her it was a token of apology, though from the weight of it, she suspected it was considerably more than that. And Nettie. Nettie held her so tight, Clara could barely breathe. "I'm sorry," Nettie whispered. "I'm so sorry for everything." "You already apologized." "I'll apologize every day for the rest of my life if you'll let me." Clara pulled back, found Nettie's face with her hands. "You don't need to. You came forward. You told the truth. That's what matters." "I should have done it sooner." "But you did it. That's what counts." Clara smiled. "Come visit us sometime. In the hills. I'll make you biscuits." Nettie laughed through her tears. "You can cook now." "Silas taught me. I'm actually not terrible." "I'd like that. I'd like that a lot." They embraced one more time, and then Silas was helping Clara onto the horse, and they were riding out of Ellsworth, leaving behind the town that had once tried to destroy her. Clara didn't look back. She didn't need to. The ride home took longer than the ride out. The weather had turned, and fresh snow made the trails treacherous. Silas guided the horse carefully, stopping often to check the path ahead to make sure they weren't riding into a drift or an ice-covered creek. Clara didn't mind the slow pace. She was in no hurry to get anywhere. For the first time in 3 years, she had nowhere to run, nothing to escape. The future stretched out ahead of her, open and full of possibility. "What are you thinking about?" Silas asked one evening as they huddled together beside a small fire in an abandoned trapper's cabin. "Everything." Clara leaned against his shoulder. "Nothing. I don't know. My brain feels quiet, like a storm that's finally passed." "That's good." "Is it I've been living in that storm for so long, I'm not sure what to do with the silence." Silas was quiet for a moment. "You learn to fill it with other things." "Like what?" "Like living. Like waking up in the morning and having breakfast and working and laughing and going to bed at night. Like all the ordinary things that don't feel ordinary when you're running for your life." Clara smiled. "That sounds peaceful." "It is. Mostly." He shifted, pulling her closer. "Sometimes it's boring." "I could use some boring." "Yeah, me too." They sat in silence for a while, listening to the fire crackle and the wind howl outside. Clara felt Silas's heartbeat against her cheek, steady and strong. She matched her breathing to his, letting the rhythm lull her into a kind of peace she'd almost forgotten existed. "Silas?" What happens when we get back to the cabin?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, what is this?" She gestured vaguely between them. I don't know how this works." Silas was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful. "What do you want it to be?" "I don't know. That's why I'm asking." "Then let me ask you this." He shifted so he was facing her, took both her hands in his. "Clara May Holloway, do you want to stay with me? Not because you have nowhere else to go. Not because I bought you for $1, but because you want to—" Clara's heart was pounding. "Yes. And do you want me to stay with you not as a protector or a guardian, but as a partner?" "Yes." "Then that's what we are. Partners. For as long as you'll have me." Clara felt tears welling up again. She seemed to cry a lot these days. But these tears were different. They weren't tears of grief or fear or pain. They were tears of something she barely recognized anymore. Joy. "I'll have you forever," she whispered. "If you'll let me." "I'll let you." Silas's voice was rough. "Clara, I'll let you." He kissed her then, slow and gentle and full of promise. And Clara kissed him back, pouring everything she felt into it, the gratitude, the love, the fierce determination to build something beautiful from the ashes of her old life. When they finally pulled apart, she was laughing. "What's so funny?" Silas asked. "Nothing. Everything. I never thought I'd have this. Any of this." "Neither did I. We're quite a pair, aren't we? A blind woman and a hermit who forgot how to talk to people. The hermit's getting better at talking." "He is. I'm proud of him." Silas made that sound again, the almost laugh that Clara had come to treasure. "Get some sleep," he said. "Long ride tomorrow. Stay with me. Always." They curled up together on the floor of the abandoned cabin, wrapped in blankets and each other, and Clara fell asleep to the sound of Silas's breathing. She dreamed of wildflowers. They reached the cabin on the afternoon of the 5th day. Clara knew they were home before Silas said anything. She recognized the sound of the wind through the pines, the particular creak of the porch steps, the way the air smelled like wood smoke and snow, and something indefinably safe. "We're here," Silas said, confirming what she already knew. He helped her down from the horse, and Clara stood for a moment on the frozen ground, her face turned toward the cabin. She could feel the afternoon sun on her skin, weak but present. She could hear a bird somewhere nearby singing, despite the cold. "It's good to be back," she said. "Yeah, it is." Silas took her hand and led her up the steps. The door opened with its familiar creak, and the warmth of the cabin rushed out to greet them. But something was wrong. Clara felt Silas stiffen beside her. His hand tightened on hers. "What is it?" she asked. "Someone's been here." Clara's heart stuttered. "Bryce, but he's not Bryce." Silas moved forward, pulling her with him. "The fire's been stoked. There's food on the table. Someone's been taking care of the place." Clara heard footsteps from the back of the cabin, heavy boots on wooden floors, and then a voice she recognized. "About time you two showed up." Harlan Webb. "Harlan?" Silas's voice was confused. "What are you doing here?" "Keeping an eye on the place. Figured you'd be back eventually, and I didn't want you coming home to a cold cabin and empty cupboards." Clara heard him move closer, smelled coffee and tobacco. "Miss Holloway." Harlan's voice was warm. "Good to see you again. Well, not see exactly, but you know what I mean." "Marshall Webb." Clara smiled. "Thank you for everything you did." "Didn't do much, just passed along some information." "You did more than that. You warned us about Bryce. You gave us time to prepare." "Well," Harlan sounded embarrassed. "Anyone would have done the same." "No, they wouldn't have. That's the point." Silence. Then Harlan cleared his throat. "There's stew on the stove, coffee in the pot. I'll get out of your hair." "You don't have to leave," Silas said. "Stay for dinner at least." "Nah, you two have had a long journey. You need rest, not an old lawman hanging around jawing at you." Harlan moved toward the door. "But I'll come back in a few days. Check in. Make sure you're settling all right." "Thank you, Harlan." Silas's voice was rough with emotion. "For everything. Don't mention it, old friend. Just be happy, all right, both of you. Lord knows you've earned it." The door opened and closed. Hoofbeats faded into the distance. Clara and Silas stood in the silence of their cabin alone together for the first time in days. "Well," Clara said, "we're home." "Yeah, we are." She reached out, found his face, pulled him down for a kiss. When she let go, he was smiling. She couldn't see it, but she could hear it in his voice. "You hungry?" he asked. "Starving." "Let's eat then. And after that, we start our life. Our real life. Together." Clara felt something bloom in her chest, something warm and bright and full of hope. "I'd like that," she said. "I'd like that very much." The days that followed were quiet ones. Clara and Silas fell into a rhythm, an easy pattern of mornings and afternoons and evenings that flowed one into the next like water over stones. They cooked together, ate together, sat by the fire together. They talked about everything and nothing, filling the silences with words, or leaving them empty depending on the mood. Clara learned more about the man who had saved her life. She learned that he talked in his sleep, not words exactly, but sounds. Murmurs of names she didn't recognize pleased to people who were no longer alive. She learned that he always woke before dawn, that he made coffee before his eyes were fully open, that he hummed tunelessly while he worked. She learned that he loved her. He never said it outright. But she heard it in the way he guided her around obstacles, in the patience of his teaching, in the gentleness of his hands. She heard it in the catch of his breath when she walked into a room, in the way he said her name, Clara May, like it was a prayer, and she loved him back. Fiercely, completely, in a way she'd never thought herself capable of. One evening about 2 weeks after they returned, Clara was sitting by the fire when Silas came in from outside. His boots were heavy with snow, and cold air clung to him like a second skin. "Storm's coming," he said. "Big one. We should have enough wood to last, but I want to check the shutters." "Need help?" "Nah, just sit there and look beautiful." Clara laughed. I can't look anything. I'm blind. Doesn't matter. You're still beautiful. She felt her cheeks flush. Flatterer. Just telling the truth. He moved around the cabin, checking windows and doors, muttering to himself about loose hinges and drafty corners. Clara listened, letting the sounds wash over her. The creak of wood, the whistle of wind, the steady rhythm of Silas's footsteps. Home. This was what home sounded like. Clara. She turned toward his voice. He was standing near the door, she could tell. His breathing was different, nervous. What is it? I want to ask you something. Okay. It's kind of important. Clara felt her heart speed up. Silas, you're scaring me. Don't be scared. It's nothing bad. At least I hope it's not bad. I hope it's the opposite of bad, actually. Then just ask. Silence. She heard him move closer, heard him kneel down in front of her chair, felt his hands take hers. Clara May Holloway, he said. His voice was shaking. I know we haven't known each other long. A few months, that's all. And I know I'm not much, just a hermit in the hills, a man with too many ghosts and not enough sense, but... Silas. Let me finish. Please. He took a breath. But when I'm with you, I feel like maybe those ghosts don't have to be so heavy. Maybe I can put them down just for a while and be something else. Something better. Another breath. I love you, Clara. I love you more than I've ever loved anything in my sorry life. And I know I can't give you much. I can't give you sight or wealth or a fancy house in town. But I can give you this cabin. I can give you my hands and my heart and every day I have left on this earth. And I'm praying, that might be enough. Clara's eyes were burning with tears. She couldn't speak. Clara May Holloway. Silas said, his voice barely a whisper. Will you marry me? The word came out before she could even think about it. Yes. Silas let out a breath that sounded like it had been trapped in his chest for years. Yes, he repeated. Yes, Silas Cade. Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, I'll spend my life with you. Yes, 1,000 times yes. He pulled her into his arms, and she clung to him, laughing and crying and saying yes over and over again, until the word lost all meaning and became just a sound, a joyful noise that filled the cabin and spilled out into the snow. The storm hit that night, howling and fierce, piling snow against the windows and rattling the shutters. But inside the cabin, Clara and Silas barely noticed. They sat by the fire, wrapped in blankets, and each other talking about the future. We'll need a preacher, Silas said. There's one in town. Does services every Sunday. I don't care about a big wedding, Clara said. Just us. Maybe Harlan as a witness. And Nettie. You said you wanted her to visit. Yes, Nettie too. She'd never forgive me if I got married without telling her. Silas laughed. All right. A small wedding then. Just us and a few friends. Perfect. And after that we live. Clara smiled. We wake up in the morning and make breakfast and work and laugh and go to bed at night. All the ordinary things. And the wildflowers. Don't forget the wildflowers. Never. Clara leaned her head against his shoulder. You promised to take me to that valley. I'm holding you to it. I'll take you anywhere you want to go, Clara May. Just name the place. Right now, I don't want to go anywhere. She snuggled closer. Right now, I just want to stay here. With you. Forever. Forever it is. The fire crackled. The wind howled. And Clara May Holloway, who had once been sold for $1, who had spent 3 years running from a crime she didn't commit, who had learned to navigate the world by sound and touch and sheer stubborn will. Clara May Holloway finally allowed herself to believe in happy endings. Not because the world had been kind to her. It hadn't. Not because the road had been easy. It hadn't been that either. but because she had found someone who saw her, really saw her despite her blindness. Someone who loved her not in spite of her scars, but because of them. Someone who had walked beside her through the darkness and promised to keep walking no matter how long the road. Silas Cade, the silent cowboy who had bought her for $1 and given her back her life. She smiled in the darkness. Her darkness, the only one she'd ever known, and listened to the sound of his heartbeat. Tomorrow, there would be plans to make, a wedding to arrange, a future to build. But tonight, there was only this: the warmth of the fire, the strength of his arms, the promise of forever. And for Clara May Holloway, that was more than enough. Spring came slow to the hills that year. Clara felt it in the way the air changed, the sharp bite of winter softening into something gentler, the silence of snow giving way to the sounds of water running and birds returning. She felt it in the warmth that lingered longer each day, in the smell of wet earth and new growth that drifted through the cabin windows. And she felt it in the way Silas moved around the property, his footsteps lighter, his voice carrying a note she'd never heard before. Hope. "The creek's thawed," he told her one morning, coming in from outside with cold still clinging to his coat. "Give it another week or two, the whole valley will be waking up. The valley with the wildflowers." "That's the one." Clara smiled. "You promised to take me there." "I remember, and I will, soon as it's safe to make the climb." She reached for him, found his hand squeezed. "I'm holding you to it." "I'd expect nothing less." The wedding was set for the first Sunday in April. Harlan came up from town to help with preparations, bringing supplies and news, and a bottle of whiskey he claimed was for medicinal purposes. Nettie arrived 3 days before the ceremony, traveling all the way from Ellsworth with a trunk full of fabric and a determination to make Clara the most beautiful bride the hills had ever seen. "You can't get married in that old dress," Nettie insisted, steering Clara toward the chair by the window. "I've brought silk, real silk from back east. Cost me a fortune, but you're worth it." "Nettie, you didn't have to—" "Hush, let me do this. Let me give you something beautiful for once." Clara felt the fabric press against her skin as Nettie took measurements. It was soft, softer than anything she'd touched in years. Cool and smooth and impossibly delicate. "What color is it?" she asked. "Ivory, like cream. It'll look perfect against your skin." "I wouldn't know. Trust me, trust." Nettie's voice was thick with emotion. "You're going to be stunning, Clara. Absolutely stunning." The days leading up to the wedding were a blur of activity. Harlan and Silas worked on the cabin, fixing shutters and mending fences and building a small arbor in the clearing where the ceremony would take place. Nettie sewed and fussed and occasionally burst into tears for no reason Clara could understand. "I'm just so happy," Nettie would say, dabbing at her eyes. "After everything that happened, seeing you like this, it's more than I ever hoped for." "You helped make this possible," Clara reminded her. "If you hadn't come forward—" Don't give me credit I don't deserve." Nettie's voice hardened. "I was a coward for 3 years. 3 years, Clara. You could have died because of my silence. But I didn't. I'm here. I'm alive. I'm getting married." Clara reached out, found Nettie's hand. "The past is past, Nettie. We can't change it. All we can do is move forward." "How do you do that? How do you forgive so easily?" Clara thought about the question, thought about all the anger and pain and bitterness she'd carried for so long. Thought about how heavy it had been, how it had weighed her down, how letting go of it had felt like setting down a burden she'd forgotten she was carrying. "It's not easy," she said finally. "And it's not really forgiveness, not exactly. It's more like choosing. Choosing not to let the past define me anymore. Choosing to look forward instead of back." She paused. "Silas taught me that. Not with words, he's not much for words, but with the way he lives. The way he treats each day like a fresh start." Nettie was quiet for a long moment. "He's a good man," she said finally. "The best I've ever known." You deserve him, Clara. You deserve all of this. So do you. Clara squeezed her hand. Promise me something. What? Promise me you'll stop punishing yourself. Promise me you'll find your own happiness, whatever that looks like. Nettie laughed, a wet sound that was half sob. I'll try. That's all any of us can do. The morning of the wedding dawned clear and warm. Clara woke to the sound of birds singing and sunlight streaming through the window. She couldn't see the light, but she could feel it warm on her face, bright even through closed eyelids. You awake? Nettie's voice came from across the room. I don't think I slept at all. Nervous. Terrified. Clara sat up, pushing the blankets aside. Is that normal? Perfectly normal. I was sick to my stomach on my wedding day. Couldn't eat a bite until the ceremony was over. That's not comforting. It wasn't meant to be. Nettie laughed. Come on, let's get you dressed. The dress fit perfectly. Nettie had worked magic with needle and thread, creating something that hugged Clara's body in all the right places and flowed like water when she moved. The fabric whispered against her skin, soft and cool, and impossibly elegant. How do I look? Clara asked, turning slowly. Nettie didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was choked. Like an angel, like something out of a dream. A pause. Your mother would be so proud, Clara, so incredibly proud. Clara felt tears prick her eyes. She'd been thinking about her mother all morning, about the songs she used to sing, about the way she'd brushed Clara's hair before bed, humming softly, her hands gentle and sure. I wish she could see this, Clara whispered. Maybe she can. Maybe she's watching right now somewhere up there. Clara smiled. Maybe. Are you ready? Clara took a deep breath. Let it out slowly. Yes, I'm ready. Nettie took her arm and led her outside. The walk to the clearing was short, 50 steps, maybe 60, but it felt like a journey. Clara focused on the ground beneath her feet, on the tap of her cane, on the warmth of the sun, and the smell of pine and wildflowers. Wildflowers. She stopped, tilted her head. Nettie, are there flowers? Silas brought them down from the high country yesterday, filled the whole clearing with them. Clara's breath caught. He didn't tell me. He wanted it to be a surprise. Of course he did. Of course Silas Cade, the man who barely spoke, who showed his love through actions instead of words, would fill their wedding clearing with wildflowers he'd carried down from a mountain valley. Clara laughed, tears streaming down her cheeks. That man, she said. That impossible, wonderful man. You ready to marry him? More than I've ever been ready for anything in my life. They walked the rest of the way together. Clara heard the murmur of voices as they approached Harlan's low rumble. The preacher's measured tones, and then silence as she stepped into the clearing. She could feel everyone watching her, could sense the weight of their gazes, but she only cared about one. Clara! Silas's voice, rough with emotion, closer than she expected. Silas! She turned toward the sound of him. I hear you brought me wildflowers. Just a few. Nettie says the whole clearing is full of them. Well, maybe more than a few. Clara laughed, reached out and found his hand. You're ridiculous. You love me anyway. God help me, I do. The preacher cleared his throat. Shall we begin? The ceremony was simple. No fancy words, no elaborate rituals. Just two people standing before God, and their friends promising to love each other for the rest of their lives. Clara listened to the preacher's words, but her attention was on Silas, on the warmth of his hand in hers, on the steady rhythm of his breathing, on the occasional catch in his voice when he spoke his vows. I, Silas Cade, take you, Clara May Holloway, to be my wife, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, until death do us part. His hand trembled as he slipped a ring onto her finger, simple gold warm from his pocket. Clara ran her thumb over its smooth surface, feeling the weight of it, the permanence. "Your turn," the preacher said gently. Clara took a breath. She'd practiced these words 100 times in her head, but now that the moment was here, they felt inadequate, too small for what she felt. "I, Clara May Holloway, take you, Silas Cade, to be my husband." Her voice was steady, stronger than she'd expected. "I can't promise to see you because I never will. I can't promise to look into your eyes and tell you I love you because I'll never know what color they are. But I can promise to listen for your footsteps and know them anywhere. I can promise to feel your heartbeat against my cheek and match my breathing to yours. I can promise to love you with everything I have, not in spite of the darkness, but through it. Because you walked into my darkness, Silas Cade, and you stayed. And that means more to me than sight ever could." She slid a ring onto his finger Nettie had helped her practice until she could do it without fumbling, and held his hand tight. "I love you," she whispered. "Today, tomorrow, forever." Silas's breath hitched. When he spoke, his voice was barely audible. "I love you too, Clara May. More than words can say." "Then by the power vested in me," the preacher announced, "I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." Silas's hands found her face. Gentle, so gentle. He tilted her chin up, and then his lips were on hers, and the world fell away. Clara heard Nettie crying, heard Harlan whooping, heard the birds singing and the wind rustling through the wildflowers. But mostly, she heard her own heart beating strong and steady and full of joy. They pulled apart, and Clara was laughing and crying at the same time. "Hello, Mrs. Cade," Silas murmured. "Hello, Mr. Cade. How does it feel?" "Like coming home." She pressed her forehead against his. "Like finally coming home." The celebration lasted well into the evening. Harlan had brought food from town, roasted chicken and fresh bread, and a cake he swore he hadn't made himself, though Clara suspected otherwise. Nettie had decorated the cabin with ribbons and more wildflowers, turning the simple space into something magical. They ate and laughed and told stories. Harlan shared tales from his lawman days, getting increasingly outrageous as the whiskey flowed. Nettie described the changes she'd seen in Ellsworth, the way the town was slowly healing from the damage Tate had caused. Even the preacher joined in revealing a surprisingly wicked sense of humor beneath his solemn exterior. And through it all, Clara sat beside Silas, her hand in his, feeling more at peace than she'd ever felt in her life. "You happy?" Silas asked, his voice low, meant only for her. Deliriously. "Good. That's all I wanted." "What about you? Are you happy?" He was quiet for a moment. Clara felt him shift, felt his arm come around her shoulders. "I didn't think I could be," he said finally. "After the war. After Thomas. After everything. I thought happiness was something that happened to other people, something I'd forfeited the right to somehow. And now I think I was wrong." He pulled her closer. "Now I think happiness isn't something you earn or deserve. It's something you choose, something you build. And I want to build it with you, Clara. Every day, for the rest of my life." Clara turned her face toward him, reached up and touched his cheek. "Then let's start building." The guests left the next morning. Harlan rode out at dawn complaining about his hangover, but grinning through every grumble. The preacher followed shortly after, shaking Silas's hand and promising to visit again soon. Nettie lingered longest, holding Clara tight and whispering promises to write to visit, to stay in touch. "You take care of yourself," Nettie said, her voice thick with tears. "I will. You too. And take care of that husband of yours. He needs someone to keep him in line." Clara laughed. "I'll do my best." "Goodbye, Clara May Cade." Nettie kissed her cheek. "I'm so proud of you. So incredibly proud." "Goodbye, Nettie. Thank you. For everything." And then she was gone, her footsteps fading down the path, her horse's hooves echoing against the frozen ground. Clara stood on the porch, listening to the silence settle back around the cabin. She felt Silas move up beside her, felt his hand find hers. "Just us now," he said. "Just us." "What do you want to do?" Clara thought about it. Thought about all the things they could do, all the possibilities stretching out before them. "Take me to the valley," she said. "The one with the wildflowers. You promised." "I did." She heard the smile in his voice. "You sure you're up for the climb? It's steep." "I've climbed harder." "All right then. Let's go." They left that afternoon. The path to the valley wound up through the trees, steep and rocky, exactly as Silas had warned. Clara leaned on her cane and concentrated on her footing, letting Silas guide her over the roughest patches. It took hours. Her legs burned, her lungs ached. More than once, she wanted to stop, to give up, to turn back. But she kept going, one step at a time, one breath at a time, because Silas was beside her and the valley was ahead, and she had waited too long to give up now. Almost there. Silas said, his voice coming from just ahead of her. Few more steps. Clara pushed forward. The ground leveled out beneath her feet. The wind changed, carrying new scents, flowers and grass and water. "We're here." She stopped, tilted her head, listened. The valley was alive with sound. Birds singing from every direction, water bubbling over stones somewhere nearby, wind rustling through grass and leaves and petals. "Describe it to me," she said. "Tell me what you see." Silas was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft, almost reverent. "It's beautiful, Clara. More beautiful than I remembered." A pause. "The whole valley is covered in flowers. Indian paintbrush, that's the red one I told you about, like the inside of a fire. Columbine blue as the sky just after sunset. Mountain bluebells pale and delicate, swaying in the breeze. What else? There's a creek running through the middle, clear as glass, just like I said. And beyond it the mountains rise up, still capped with snow. The sun's hitting them just right, making them glow. And the sky. Blue. Deep blue, the kind you only get at altitude. A few clouds, white and puffy, drifting slow." Clara closed her eyes, let the images form in her mind, painted by his words. "It's perfect," she whispered. "You can't even see it." "I don't need to." She reached out, found his hand. "You showed it to me. That's enough." They stood there for a long time, hand in hand, surrounded by wildflowers Clara would never see, and mountains she would never climb. But it didn't matter. None of it mattered, because she had everything she needed right here. Clara. Silas's voice was strange, hesitant. "What is it?" "There's something I never told you, about why I bought you that day in Dodge City." Clara frowned. "You said it was because no one else was going to." "That's part of it, but there's more." He took a breath. "When I saw you standing on that platform with that burlap over your face and those ropes on your wrists, I saw myself. The way I felt after the war, after Thomas. Trapped, helpless, sold to a fate I didn't choose." "Silas." "Let me finish, please." Another breath. "I bought you because I recognized something in you. A strength, a stubborn refusal to break no matter what they did to you. And I thought maybe if I could help you, I could help myself too. Maybe if I could save you, I could save a piece of what I'd lost." Clara felt tears sliding down her cheeks. "Did you save yourself?" "I don't know." His voice cracked. "But I know that loving you has made me better, made me whole in ways I didn't think were possible. And I know that every day I spend with you is a gift I don't deserve." Silas Cade. Clara stepped closer, pressed her palms against his chest. "You deserve everything. You deserve love and happiness and a future full of wildflowers and laughter and peace. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you get it." "Clara," I mean it. You saved me that day in Dodge City. Not just my body, my soul, my hope, my belief that there was still good in the world. She reached up, touched his face. You gave me back my life. Let me give you back yours. Silas pulled her into his arms, held her tight. Clara felt his tears falling onto her hair, felt his chest shaking with sobs he'd been holding back for years. I love you, he whispered. God, Clara, I love you so much. I know. She held him tighter. I know. I love you too. They stood there in the valley of wildflowers, two broken people who had found each other in the darkness and built something beautiful from the pieces. The sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky in colors Clara would never see. The birds sang their evening songs. The creek murmured its endless melody, and Clara May Cade, the blind woman who had once been sold for $1, knew that she had finally found what she'd been searching for her whole life. Home. Not a place, not a building, but a person. A heart that beat in time with hers. A soul that recognized her soul and chose to stay. Take me back, she said finally when the air grew cool and the sounds of the valley began to quiet. Take me home. Which home? The cabin. Our cabin. She smiled. Wherever you are, Silas, that's home. They walked back down the mountain together, hand in hand, as the stars came out one by one above them. Clara listened to the rhythm of Silas's footsteps, matched her breathing to his, let him guide her through the darkness she'd lived in for 23 years. But it wasn't really darkness anymore. Not with him beside her. It was just different. A different way of seeing. A different way of knowing the world. And she wouldn't trade it for anything. When they reached the cabin, Silas stopped at the bottom of the porch steps. Clara. Yes. The door. It's right there. 5 steps up, then straight ahead. She understood. This was important. This was a moment. Clara released his hand, found her cane, took the first step, then the second, then the third, fourth, fifth. Her hand found the doorframe, the familiar wood worn smooth by time and touch. She pushed the door open and felt the warmth of the cabin rush out to greet her. And then, for the first time since Silas had brought her home, Clara May Cade stepped through the door first. Not following, not being led, but walking on her own 2 feet into her own home, into her own life. Silas's footsteps followed behind her. The door closed, and they were home. Welcome back, Mrs. Cade, he said. Clara smiled. It's good to be here, Mr. Cade. It's good to be here. Outside, the stars wheeled overhead in their ancient dance. The mountains stood silent and eternal. The wildflowers in the valley waited for morning, when they would open their petals to the sun. And inside the cabin in the hills, a blind woman and a silent cowboy sat by the fire. Their hands intertwined, their hearts at peace. The world had tried to break them. It had sold Clara for $1 and buried Silas under the weight of his grief. It had told them both that they were worthless, damaged beyond saving. But the world had been wrong. Because love doesn't need eyes to see. It doesn't need words to speak. It only needs 2 hearts brave enough to reach across the darkness and hold on. Clara May Cade had found her way through that darkness. She had walked through fire and snow and fear and come out the other side, scarred but standing. And she would never stop standing. Not as long as she had breath in her body and a hand to hold, and a man who saw her really saw her, even when the whole world looked away. That was the truth of it. The only truth that mattered. Love had found her in the darkness, and love had brought her home.